Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over home theater equipment. And this is my second recording because I noticed the first one was stupidly long. Uh, and I noticed how bad my beard is. It's ridiculous. But let's get on to home theater equipment. So, this I'm going to be going over is the basics of connecting all the home theater equipment. I have a bunch of other videos planned on getting more in depth on this. For instance, I have a Harmony Smart Control here. I'll get into that on another video. I'll get into the more advanced stuff, like using the multi-channel inputs and multi-channel outputs for front and surround and how all that works. I'll get into Zone 2 connections later on as well. So this is going to be the basics, the bare bones of what you're going to need to know how to connect a stereo receiver. So for instance, let's say you've never had one of these before, you've never had an audio before, any type of thing besides the TV speakers, and you want to figure out how you can connect it and what some of the benefits are. So let's start off with the benefits. So if you're just using the TV, you already have very poor audio quality. When you have individual speakers, for instance, this is one of my center channel speakers, well, my only center channel speaker at the moment, and this speaker obviously is pretty big. However, I'm going to walk over to my TV in my living room. There is no place for me to put a speaker that big on this TV. There's a couple of them at the bottom, a pair of speakers. There is no way for a TV manufacturer to fit a speaker this big into a TV. So right out of the box, you're gonna have better speakers because they can't fit really good speakers in the TV anyway, and they're incredibly small. But somehow most people can get by with that, just depending on what they want to listen to. So for someone who wants to really enjoy what they watch, so if it's sporting events, if it's movies, if it's music, whatever you like on TV, pretty much this is for someone who wants to get a more, who wants to enjoy their audio and video setting better. So for me, I love watching movies. That's probably my top my top reason to have all this equipment. And then also I do a lot of gaming, so that's also where it comes in. I do love listening to music as well, but we'll get into that later, into some of the more advanced stuff. But let's go with basic connections. So every receiver you're going to have, this is the newest one up here. It is a Denon AVR 391. It's kind of like their basic entry-level receiver. It's going to have speaker connections for hooking up from the receiver directly to a speaker. So you have your standard 5.1 setup, which includes a right and a left speaker, a center channel speaker. These are the surrounds left and right. And then the subwoofer connects with a different type of connection, an RCA style, which connects right there. And that's because the subwoofer will not have a speaker connection. Some do, but most setups will have a subwoofer that has an amplifier installed in itself. That's why a subwoofer will normally say it has 300, 400, whatever watts it has. And that's also why a subwoofer will have its own power cable normally. So it'll have its own type of power cable that plugs into the wall to give it power. So you have all your speakers, and that's also why they call it 5.1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then the 0.1 is the subwoofer. If you see 5.2, you could hook up 2 subwoofers. This receiver is actually a 7.1. I have my front left and right, my surround left and right. This has a surround back left and right, and a center. So right there is my 7 speakers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's a whole bunch of different configurations for this. Everything pretty much is used as 5.1. You pretty much only need to get into more speakers than that when you want to get a little bit different sound. For instance, Dolby Atmos is real new right now, and that's when you'll start seeing like 5.2.2, which will be 5 speakers. So your left, right, center, rear surround speaker, right surround, and left surround. That's the first 5. Then you have the 0.2 or 0.1, which will be your amount of subwoofers. Then the last number, the 0.2, is your height speakers or ceiling speakers, which will be a different connection. So that means you have to have your receiver built up for these. So none of my receivers would work for a Atmos setup, which I'll eventually get, but not right now. But the one thing to consider with that is if you're doing an Atmos system, you gotta remember there's only a handful of movies that are out right now that will let you actually use that to its full extent. Almost every movie that's out right now that you can buy will be in 5.1 at a minimum. Here or there, you'll see some differences with that. Then with the subwoofers, don't really worry about that. That's not really a dimensional effect like the surround sound is. So if you feel like you need more bass or you have a really big room, that's when you could use more than one subwoofer. But we'll just get into just using the 5.1 for the day. So you have your 5 speakers and a subwoofer. That's a 5.1 setup. So then we need all the connections for that. So we have RCA, video is yellow, right audio and left audio, the red and white. Right is red, so that's pretty easy right off the bat. We have our old style component videos, which are video only. There's no audio in these connections, so that gives us 720 video. The yellow only gives us 640 standard definition. And then we can go up to HDMI inputs, which will give us that full 1080p, or now 4K in some instances, for everything we're using. So as far as connections go, normal speaker cable, that's what we'll use for setting up these speakers. We'll have yellow, white, and red. We won't really see this in anything modern, but that can be used for audio connections like a CD player or headphones. They normally will use like this aux input, or they can be hooked up with USB. Another pair of headphones with a headphone input. That's for my headphones when my wife doesn't want me listening to anything loud. My subwoofer connection, which can be any type of RCA, doesn't matter. I just have this really long one so I can put it anywhere I want. And up here we have our newer connections. So we have our HDMI, which has this big long connection, which is all these guys up top. And then we have our optical cable here, which can also be called a toslink or a digital audio cable. And that's where we have surround sound capability. So there's 3 cables that will give you surround sound: HDMI, digital coax, which is just an RCA connection, but it's still a digital connection, and then optical. For the digital coax, you can use any cable. Like you can use a subwoofer cable for that. You can use a single white or red cable, a single yellow cable. Any of the cables that will connect into any one of these, you could use for digital coax. The color really doesn't matter, just as long as you know what it is. They make orange cables if you really want to color code it correctly, or you could just label it anything you want. The cable does whatever the output of the sources from like the Blu-ray player, the cable box. Those all have its own connections. So as long as you go from orange on one end to orange on the other one, it'll do what it needs to. If you go like white to orange, that's not going to work. So no matter how much you try and plug a stereo connection into a digital coax, it will not give you surround sound. HDMI gives you picture and audio, while these, the optical and the coax, will only give you audio. You won't get any picture from those. So if you're using one of these, you'll still have to use some type of video cable up to your TV. So the easiest way to do it is hook it up with HDMI. That's going to be a single cable from your monitor connection up to the TV, and then from your cable box or Blu-ray player into one of the inputs. So you have inputs and outputs. Output goes to a monitor or a projector, TV, whatever is displaying what you want to watch. And then these are the inputs into the receiver, which will give you audio and video through here. So you plug in with your Blu-ray player into any connection you want to label the Blu-ray player, and that's going to give you audio out of the speaker connections and then video out of the monitor. So that'll give you the surround sound as well as the video to the TV. Not everything is shot in surround sound. Movies in general are the most common in surround sound. Sporting events have now done like crowd noise on the rear speakers. So you'll hear like crowd noise or anything in the background possibly, and you'll hear like the announcers out of the left and right and the center. Some live concert events that are shot in surround sound, so you can hear crowd noise and how the crowd would hear it, for instance, is how they try to do it. And it normally sounds pretty good. And that's going to be the easy way. So let's go on to something a little harder. So let's say you have a receiver like this, does not have any HDMI connections. So we have a new, let's say we just bought a new TV, has all the HDMI stuff, but we don't have any HDMIs on this. So we're going to go from the Blu-ray player, the cable box, whatever else we're plugging into the TV and we want to watch and listen to, we're going to plug that into the TV. Then we're going to take the optical cable and go from the TV and into one of our optical connections. And then we're going to leave this receiver on that connection all the time. So whatever shows up on the TV, we're going to hear out of the speakers we plug into this. Some people don't like to do it because you're basically using the TV as an audio connection between there, so that's going to be your weak point as far as audio quality is concerned. If you have a really good TV, it's probably not going to be an issue. Most modern TVs are going to sound pretty good. Like I have a Vizio TV, and that does pretty dang good, even though it's an entry-level Vizio model. Some real basic Samsungs or other like Black Friday items may not even have these. So really kind of pay attention to what you're buying and how you're going to connect it. So I'd say if you're going to go buy something, make sure it's going to connect correctly. You can look up the user manuals online and see what it needs. Most likely on a TV you're going to want to have it to have HDMI connections and opticals. If you're using smart features on a TV, you're going to need the optical cable anyway to go from the TV, because in that case the TV is the source providing all the video and audio, and you're going to need an audio cable back to the TV, which will normally be an optical. So if you're using Netflix, for instance, you'd have the TV on and this set to the optical TV input on this receiver with an optical cable from the TV output to here. And then let's go on to the hardest option, which is connecting this with connecting the TV with HDMI and using all audio connections. So most cable boxes, Blu-ray players, they're going to have one of these on here, either a digital coax or an optical. So you'd go from the cable box and the Blu-ray player, everything else, with an HDMI cable directly to the TV. Its only job is to give video at that point. And then we're going to take the optical cable or the digital coax and connect it to one of the inputs on this receiver. That's going to give us the audio to here and the video to the TV. And those are pretty much the three options you have for connecting a TV and audio and your source equipment, the cable box and Blu-ray and everything else, to a receiver of your choice. So HDMI is the easiest and most straightforward. Then HDMI to the TV and optical or digital coax back into a receiver is the second easiest. Then the hardest is, and has the most wiring also, is HDMI is up to the TV, and then audio cables, digital coax or optical cables from the source to the receiver. So that got a little complicated, so if you guys do have any questions, please let me know. Normally you'll only use these audio connections, the white and red, for any time you want just stereo connections. So headphones use those, also CD players or any other type of audio specific will only use those. But when you're talking about surround sound, you'll never use these. So if you guys do have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I'll try to get back to you guys as soon as I can. Next couple videos, I'm going to go over Harmony universal remotes and a couple other different types of remotes you can have. I have a custom mount I made in the corner, which I'll go over next. I did a corner mount, so to give you guys a look at that. Again, I have that TV mounted in the corner there, and I made a wood frame with a standard TV mount attaches to. And then I'll go into the projector when I decide to order that, once we get through all of this getting acquainted with a new house, and we're changing the vehicle situation around a little bit right now. And before I forget again, we have AM connections here, these two little plugs, and FM. So if you want FM or AM radio, there's those two options. I'll also get into some of the more, I guess we'll call them smart or internet radio options. For instance, I have Sonos speakers around the house that I use. And there's also another piece behind my current TV cabinet, but I'll go into all that later. I'll go into zone 2 connections later, so for outside or speakers in another room. There's really a lot of material I'll cover, but this is kind of the basics to get you guys started. So your speaker connections, your video connections, and some of the stuff in between. I'll do another video when I actually connect all this stuff up, when I do my home theater setup. I'm also going to go into doing all the settings on this as far as audio is considered. So I'll do a audio calibration. Then I also have a DVD by Disney. It's available on Amazon. I believe it's I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but Disney makes a calibration disc to help you kind of tune in the video picture on the TV. And I'll go into more of that later on. But for now, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'll kind of go over this a little bit better in the description as well. And if you guys have any comments, let me know. I'll get back to them with any questions you guys have. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys next time.